Welcome into CHGO White Sox podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app today and use promo code CHGO when you sign up. Welcome into Studio A of our CHGO offices here in the West Loop of Chicago. I'm Sean Anderson, the host of the CHGO White Sox podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean_W_Anderson. You can follow the show on Twitter at CHGO_White Sox. Got the usual crew with me. Vinnie Duber. You can follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Duber. He's our CHGO White Sox beat writer. He's got a new piece up at allchgo.com that you can go read. All about Team USA, the World Baseball Classic, and Tim Anderson and Lance Lynn's fantastic performances last night. And Herb Lawrence, hello. You can follow him on Twitter at Ecknerwall23. He's our CHGO White Sox community leader. And what's up, Baloney and Melissa in the chat? Good to see you. Melissa's hanging out in Arizona. Spring training's still going on. Feels like... I guess, yeah. The World Baseball Classic's kind of taking all the baseball headlines. No,
good,
right?
It should. I mean, this is as we've talked to death. This is something that means a little something that people care about, and it's a little better than watching 3 hours of practice every day.
It's either this or we could talk about the pitch clock. Which one?
We've talked an awful lot about the pitch clock.
This is new. This is nice. A nice showing for Tim Anderson and Lance Lynn yesterday. 12-1 victory. Again, you can go read Vinny's piece up at All CHGO about this. But what do we make of the game? Let's just jump in. The America needed a win. 12-1 is going to help you in the run quotient. If it comes down to that, they got a big game against Colombia. At least America and Team USA put themselves in a position for that Colombia game to matter, because if they didn't show up against Canada, yikes, it would have been ugly.
Yeah, they needed that game, and this group is not that good. Mexico surprised the United States with that drubbing they had the other day of the United States, and I think that woke the Americans up, knowing that they needed a victory versus the Canadians, and a big-time victory so they can drive up the run quotient, knowing that Colombia was on deck, and they're not that strong either. They're right now, I think, currently losing to the Canadian team 1-0. So I was never scared that the Americans weren't going to get the job done, because the lack of talent in that pool is staggering. They're by far the best team in that pool. But to see them go out last night and just obliterate that 19-year-old kid's confidence, man, I felt really sad for him. I was like, man, they're never going to let an American in Canada anymore, because we just killed the country, because 9 runs in that first inning, just relentless. Even Tim Anderson drew a walk. That's a rarity in that first inning. The kid was not ready for prime time, and that's on the manager to put him against the best offense in the World Baseball Classic. As we looked at the lineups, like, why would you do that? Why would you do to that kid what you did to him and ruin his confidence forever? But Americans took it to them, and I expect them to take it to Colombia when they play them tomorrow after a nice off day, a well-earned off day.
I mean, hey, I turned it on. I found Fox Sports 1 on the on the Hulu cable, and I turned it on because Lance Lynn was pitching and TA was playing. And listen, I think for White Sox fans, that was a very enjoyable watch. Not only that, it was regular, right? I mean, everybody on the broadcast is going wild. Oh my goodness, Lance Lynn's doing this. Oh my goodness, Tim Anderson's doing that. And I think if you watch this team on a regular basis, you're like, yeah, this is what those two guys do, right? I don't think anybody should have been surprised by seeing Lance Lynn go out and dominate for 5 innings. I don't think anybody should be surprised by Tim Anderson knocking the ball the other way and revving this team up with the energy that he brings. This is what he does on a daily basis for the White Sox. So, everybody's talking today about, what a surprising star. Tim Anderson is the one who's emerging with the team with Mike Trout on it, Nolan Arenado, and Mookie Betts. And you know what? Guess what? Tim Anderson has kind of been really good this whole time.
Yeah, there was one real surprising part about Tim Anderson's performance.
Boy, yesterday. Was there.
He played second base.
Yeah, he did.
There you go. I mean, that's surprising. But for a guy who has a career average in the postseason of 485, an OBP of 485, slugging of 454, I'm not surprised that his current slash line is 4 for 7, a double, a triple, 4 RBIs. Surprising walk, like you said, and then 2 Ks to go along with it, because that's what he does. He has 5 strikeouts in the postseason as well. He's like Babe Ruth, basically. He's just going up, and he's either trying to, have a Tim Anderson Babe Ruth swing and put his mightiest swing to the opposite field on it, or he's going to go swinging and go down striking out. I mean, it's not too surprising his game. He's really good at it.
Yeah, and I think manager Mark DeRosa said after the game that he called up Timmy in the afternoon. He's like, hey, man, got a lefty on the bump. Need you today. Can you give me second base? He's like, no problem. no problem, Chief. And during the broadcast, you heard Jason Benetti and John Smoltz and then also Ken Rosenthal explain that this is his first time ever playing second base in any minor league or major league game, ever. So you see the first attempt he gets, of course, he stumbles a little bit, but gets the out still, and he looks over to Mark DeRosa, gives him a thumbs up, joking and stuff. And so, Tim, I like the fact that he's flexible. Like, Trey Turner was going to start as shortstop yesterday, and Mark DeRosa just was like, no, I need my spark in there. I need the guy that's going to be driving my offense to the next level. And he puts him in there, and he bats him like 6th or 7th each time he plays, and Tim delivers. And yesterday with that RBI triple, he was low-flying around the bases. I love to see Tim put all the talent together. The opposite field hit, of course, and then I was like, okay, he's going to be cruising with a double. No, sir. Cutting those bases perfectly and getting to the third pretty comfortably. So Tim looks like he's in midseason form, and it was good to have, we know as White Sox fans and, people who are not casual fans know that Tim Anderson's the engine and he's a spark. But it's good for him to be on a national, global stage, and people like, Mike Trout's talking about him. We got Mark DeRosa talking about him. We got Nolan Arenado talking about him. He's getting the national and global pub that he deserves. Even though he's an all-star starting shortstop in the all-star, I think he's still underserved and not getting his proper due nationally.
I mean, people should know all of that already about Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson is a 2-time all-star, including the starter at shortstop last year for the American League. The bat flip, that's 4 years ago at this point. And then how about the fact, he's got his Dairy Queen commercial. You can't forget that. And then how about the fact that maybe in recent baseball history, the single most biggest, grandest highlight moment in recent baseball history for a national stage came off of Tim Anderson's bat. That walk-off home run in the Field of Dreams game to beat the Yankees. I know it wasn't Game 7 of the World Series or anything like that, but there is no reason that Tim Anderson shouldn't be a household name. I'm surprised to hear a guy like Mark DeRosa, who's on MLB Network every day talking about baseball, saying, oh my God, I'm surprised at how good he is in the clubhouse and how good he is in the dugout. What are you talking about? Turn any White Sox game on. Read any story about the White Sox. I'm not saying that it's malicious or anything like that, but this is part of the definition of Tim Anderson, is the leader and the emotional engine that he is for this White Sox team. I think that people seeing it across the country and across the world, great, because Tim Anderson deserves that sort of stage and that level of recognition. But you would think that guys like DeRosa and Ken Rosenthal would know all this stuff already. And maybe it is just that, man, the White Sox had such a disappointing year last year that everybody shut them out of their brain pretty much on a national level. That's possible, but I think Tim Anderson, I've said it before, I think Tim Anderson is one of the faces of baseball. I think he has been for a while, basically ever since he flipped that bat. And, that he is, in my view, and granted I'm a person who watches him play every single day, but in my view, he deserves to be on a marquee with Mike Trout and Mookie Betts and Nolan Arenado, and maybe not because he's, first ballot Hall of Famer like a few of those guys are, but just because he does strike me as one of the star power people in this game. Yeah,
and it's weird too, because you mentioned the Field of Dreams moment specifically. I just heard this stat, so I just kind of want to compare the numbers. The final out of last year's World Series, the most national we think baseball can get, right, at least from a USA level, 300,000 views on Twitter. The final out of the World Series last year.
This is the video highlight.
Yeah, the video highlight on Twitter. Shohei Ohtani's home run, where he just hits this mammoth one in the World Baseball Classic, 7.4 million, and then Tim's walk-off, 1.2. But still, breaking that million view, doing that for MLB, even though it's a Big Four, is very difficult.
It is,
and he had that signature moment. So it is interesting. I don't know if it is the stage or if it's goldfish brain, where it's like, oh, right, he was injured last year, or we've stopped thinking about him in August. So, it's been 9 months. Tim Anderson must be dead. He can't possibly be good at baseball. I'm not surprised by it. I'm definitely not surprised by the Lance Lynn one, but it is a little bit good to see that he's back to Tim Anderson, because I do want to flash the stuff that we were showing. I think he had the quote to James where he said, "I feel normal." Not this one, sorry. But you can flash the graphics there. he had a quote to James where he talked about feeling normal, and Joe McEwing talked about how he started pulling the ball a little bit more after the groin injury. And we could see pre-groin injury again. Like he had a 378 ISO going the opposite field. He was hitting it, 882 for an average exit velocity. And Sarah, if you want to go to the next one, the post-groin injury, that ISO goes down to 0.026. He loses about a mile per hour average exit velocity. He just seems back, right? He's going the other way, 90 mile per hour exit velocity each and every time. You talked about him going around the bases. I don't think it's surprising. It's just a great sign because it's like that was just a little finger injury. And hopefully the groin is all healed up basically now.
Oh, it's healed up.
10 months away.
Well, I'll say this too. I think there was something about the way that Team USA was playing last night. You said, you think he's going to just pull up with a double on that gap hit, right? Yeah. And no, he motors to third base. Obviously, Team USA was like, okay, we need to respond from that Mexico game. This is tournament life here. You wonder if you see something a little similar from the White Sox this year, right? This whole everybody's talking about proving something. Everybody's talking about chip on their shoulder. Listen, it's a 162 game season. It's not all going to be 12-1 every night or anything like that. But maybe there is that little sense of urgency that everybody said was missing from last year's team. Maybe you just see it in this whole prove it, this we got to do this kind of thing. There's a really big to-do item on the White Sox's list every single night, and that's make sure that last year doesn't happen again. Maybe you see maybe you see what you saw from Tim Anderson last night playing in a similar attitude that Team USA had. Maybe you see that from the White Sox as a whole this year.
I think that's why your piece from yesterday was so important because it's like Pedro Grifol is making that prove it kind of an easy bite-size thing. All right, we're going to take it day by day. It's a nightly approach to proving it. We're going to go out each and every game and prove it. We're going to try to win each series by winning, the first one, then the next one, then the third one. Try to bring that energy and make sure that it's not this month-long goal that seems like, oh, hey, we'll turn it on in June, or hey, the Royals are coming in town. We'll get an easy 3-game sweep. I think hopefully that Pedro Grifol mindset that he's trying to set here helps them feel like it's easier of a goal to achieve.
Yeah, and I just marveling at Jeff McNeil, all-star second baseman in his own right, got benched pretty much. And he was like, hey, I'm going to have a person who's never played second before because I need that guy in my lineup. Get out of here, Jeff McNeil, which White Sox fans would love to have him. Consummate professional.
Rumors.
Yes. And he's like, no, Tim Anderson. The man just, wherever he goes, he has an impression on somebody where Mark was doing a whole thing and on the soapbox where he's like, Tim's got to do this, that, and the other, professionalism, blah, blah, blah. He meets him in the clubhouse like, no, Tim Anderson is a dog. Tim Anderson is the guy you want in your clubhouse. I don't know, as Vinny says, I don't know how you don't get that already. How Mark DeRosa is not the manager of the United States. He doesn't call up Tony and say, hey, man, how's this dude? Well, or call up Pedro, hey, man, how's this dude? Call up other people, how's this dude? So he's like, oh, my God. TA? This is you? Whoa.
Exactly. Maybe, Mark DeRosa has a problem with the bat flip or has thinks he knows what TA is to him and doesn't want to look into it any further. Well, I bet that guy trusts Tony La Russa. I bet that guy trusts what Ricky Renneria and Pedro Grifol have to say because they're baseball lifers just like he was. It really seems like you don't have to go far to find these rave reviews because everybody that stepped into a clubhouse with Tim Anderson has the exact same opinion of him. I'm trying to now find who Mark DeRosa and Tim Anderson have played with teammates-wise. I bet we could find a funny one in there. I did want to bring up, what was the point I was going to bring? I'm sorry. You'd think that he'd do that, though. I mean, again, he's covering them each and every morning. I mean, that's his job is to recap you on baseball. It's I'm not trying to crush the guy. I'm just saying,
but it's just it is weird. It's weird to have that reaction of oh, Tim Anderson, hey, where'd he come from?
It's just here we are in 2023. And 2019, Tim Anderson's coming out party, whether you thought it was because of the bat flip and all the stuff that he said that year, the team taking on his identity that year, or just the fact that he won a batting title. This guy is not somebody who should be still fighting for attention.
Yes, and the point I wanted to bring up too, I think it's funny that we talked about Mookie Betts possibly playing second base and him taking grounders. He's played right field the whole time. Here comes Tim Anderson at second base to bench Jeff McNeil.
And Mookie Betts is a second baseman
by
that
trade.
didn't get it to be a second baseman because Boston had Pedroia there at the time. He's like, all right, let me be the best right fielder maybe of all time. So, yeah, and they're like, we'll have a guy that's just going to move over. And Dino Abel says in the quote, he's like, Tim's going to be fine. The only problem that he might have is the blind throw if he's at second base, throwing back to first. That's the only difficulty coming from where he's coming from in second base. That's the only difficulty. He's got enough hands. His arm strength is brilliant enough. He'll be fine.
More evidence that Elvis Andrus will be fine as well.
Well, at least Elvis Andrus gets to spend a month and a half practicing.
True.
Right. Do you think, I know Tim wants to play shortstop. Do you think it opens up a door for Tim to maybe move to second?
No.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because why would you want to move him off of shortstop?
Yeah.
Just as Elvis Andrus wants to play there.
Yeah, but
He's more
shortstops get
comfortable.
paid more.
I would think that Elvis is a better actual shortstop than Tim is.
I don't know
At
if
the
that, I
fielding.
mean, maybe, sure. Like, more sure-handed, more, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I always say about Tim when people talk to me about his defense is that Tim Anderson is a hell of an athlete.
Oh, yeah.
And to play shortstop, you need to be better than just – to play shortstop well, you need to be better than just I don't make throwing errors. You know what I mean? You need to be able to have all the athletic ability that allows you to make those eye-popping plays. And I think if you're the White Sox, heck, we know, we don't have to say if, the White Sox have done it for years now. You put Tim Anderson out there and you let him make a few errors at shortstop because he's going to make you way more plays than a lot of other people could. And that's nothing against Elvis Andrus. The guy's a veteran. The guy's been doing it forever. He's very good at shortstop. But I think Tim Anderson's athleticism is far more of a plus at shortstop than people who see him make a wide throw or make a number of errors out there in the field care to realize.
And to be fair, Tim made 12 errors last year, and I think 8 were versus the Cleveland Guardians. It was a very jumbled up.
In that 1 week, I think.
Pretty much. Like, he made a lot of errors, like, in one pocket, and then didn't make a lot of errors the rest of the time he was playing. So he did fix it up. But, yeah, he was a mess versus the Cleveland Guardians.
Well, and to your point, too, Vinny, I think there's a new stat that was created by Baseball Prospectus. I'm trying to find the actual article, but it's basically was trying to figure out who has the most range and like who gets to the most balls. And it's like Tim Anderson has a ton of range. He's just never really converting on a ton of those plays that he gets to, but it's like he has the most range of like most players. So it's like he's getting to balls where people just don't get to. And that's been like quantified and measured over the past year. So I'm trying to give credit to it, but that's anecdotally and, metrics wise, it's on point. And also, I don't think he's going to move over to second because, we just saw Dansby Swanson get $175 million.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, shortstops get paid. Second basemen do not.
You can look at Trevor Story, who was actually going to be moving over, but he was a second baseman last year for the Boston Red Sox, getting paid. Yeah, I would.
But he got paid and then moved over.
He got paid as a shortstop, absolutely.
Yeah, but I would say he would stay in at shortstop. But I'm just like, is the door open? The fact that he's doing this for Team USA, I think is the only reason he's doing it. If Pedro Gaffaldo has come to him, hey, man, move to short, he'd be like, I'm good. Thanks, though. Thanks for the suggestion. I'm good, though. I did that for Team USA. It was a one-time thing. The man asked me. I did it. I'm not doing it for the season. I'm getting my money after this year because, yes, posting numbers as a shortstop get you more money than posting numbers as a second baseman. Even though the numbers, if you have a good second baseman, you can go far with that.
If the only thing that I think this means anything for in terms of the White Sox is if Tim Anderson signs that big money contract to stay on the south side, and then Colson Montgomery comes up, once that contract's signed, is he more willing to move over? Again, I don't think you have to. I think he's very good at shortstop. I don't think you have to move him. You can easily say, hey, rookie, you've never played Major League Baseball before. Why don't you go over to second base because the guy who's the face of this franchise is out there playing shortstop. I don't think it's something that needs to happen, but maybe way down the road, if Tim Anderson is aging in his career at the end of his next contract, and you're like, well, maybe the Montgomery kid can have a little more athleticism now, and we're talking 5-6 years down the road, maybe that happens then, but this is a topic for a far-off future, not this one. Not the present, I don't think.
Well, at least for 2023, and I want to bring up this from blank name in the chat, it's because I think you meant Tim, has good arm strength but not a gun. He does have a stronger arm than Elvis, so again, if we're just thinking of that, he's got great range, good arm. I don't think there's. Obviously, we're not actually discussing Elvis playing shortstop, but
No,
just still, I do think at least Tim makes sense on that side of the diamond. And then I think it just depends on what type of athlete Colson is. If he's a better athlete, has that arm and has better range, why not put him at shortstop? And if Tim's already been paid and he's been here for a while, he might be accepting to that as long as he's still 7. People are still going to cheer him if he's at second base or shortstop. I know.
Well, and I guess my point is too, though. You only need to cross that bridge if you come to it, right?
Yeah.
And if Tim's out there in 7 years and he's no longer the athlete that he used to be, then you can have that discussion. But right now, he's a good shortstop. They don't have a problem where they need to switch shortstops.
Yeah, I would seriously think about signing up to a long-term deal, maybe even eating the last 2 years and say, hey, man, you're just this. I need this on the White Sox. And, yeah, I'll eat the last 2 years of a good team contract to just have your services for now and going into the future.
Tell me right now, where does TA rank among White Sox faces over the years? You know what I mean? We just spent last year talking about Jose Abreu. Oh, that number of retirement's coming. That statute is coming. Slam dunk, put it in there. Do the White Sox have a lot of incentive from just keeping one of your franchise icons around to give Tim Anderson a long-term contract?
Why don't we take a break and sit on that, because I think that's a great question. And I do wonder, too, have we learned anything of how Jose Abreu was treated, if, he's going to get certain treatments or not? Was it just dependent on Jose's age? Why don't we take a break and then get into Vinny's question, because I think it's a good one right there. And I did find the stat where Tim is good at, so I'll be able to share it. The actual name and the made-up abbreviation for Vinny.
It's called a tease.
Throw the Scrabble towels out there, because Sean's got something.
Makes sense, I think. And I think Henry in the chat says, tell me why I feel like Tim will end up in New York on the Yankees.
I hope not.
Yeah, I'd be sick.
Josh Donaldson's still there.
No, well, Josh Donaldson won't be there after this year. The second they can get him out of that date, I think they will. Let's jump into a quick break. We had Chris Crawford from RotoWire on our show on Friday, and we just want to let you know that they are a fantastic, fantastic outlet and website and resource for you to take advantage of your fantasy baseball league. It is baseball season. Get your latest fantasy baseball news from RotoWire, a pioneer of fantasy sports for over 25 years. They offer clean sheets, custom player rankings to fit all leagues, either rotisserie, points leagues, 10-cat leagues, 30-cat leagues, etc. And they you can let their experts analyze all the wild baseball stats for you. The Scrabble stats, as Vinny likes to call them, WRC plus, barrel rate. They break down sleepers that are lying in the Colorado mountains, or maybe the infested press box of Oakland, and all those prospects like Colson Montgomery, and they give you the on those players for your deep, deep leagues. They also have mock drafts galore, and if you do want to ask guys like Chris Crawford questions, Ask the Expert function is a fantastic tool for you to boost your fantasy team. You also have access to fantasy, DFS, and sports betting articles, and it's not just baseball. Take fantasy advice on everything from golf, soccer, NASCAR, and the XFL. So for a limited time, RotoWire is offering a free 2-day trial to our listeners. Just go to rotowire.com/CHGO to register. No commitments. They are so confident that they'll like they are so confident that you'll like their product and want to invest in a subscription plan that they don't even ask for a credit card up front. So take a peek behind the paywall, and when the trial is done, you can decide if a RotoWire package is right for you. A fantastic, fantastic way to check them out. So rotowire.com, and it is a 2-day free trial with no commitments. Also want to let you know about ComEd. ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities we serve manage energy usage and lower energy bills now and into the future. ComEd offers a wide array of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, and public sector customers of all sizes across our territories, and customers can inquire about how to upgrade outdated lighting to energy and money-saving efficient LED lights. Learn more about network lighting to operate your lights through your mobile device, and track your facility's energy usage and more. Incentives have recently increased for indoor-outdoor lighting and network lighting controls, making these projects even more cost-effective than before. So visit ComEd.com/poweringbiz. That's ComEd.com/poweringbiz. Now to start saving money and energy and to start a project, you can contact us at 1-855-433-2700. For more information, you can email businessee@ComEd.com or public sector ee@ComEd.com. All right, let's get into that question. Herb, where does Tim Anderson rank among the faces of your?
He should.
YORE?
Yeah.
Your?
Yeah. Okay.
He should rank number one because he was drafted as a White Sox, cultivated by them, brought up, and has become a superstar under their watch. But as we have 79, he's done more in his career, Jose Abreu, than Tim Anderson
His
has
stats
done.
are better.
Yes.
But is that my point? Is that's not the end all be all, right?
It's not.
Right.
Tim is of the White Sox. He moved his family into the city of Chicago. I don't think they're there now, but he embraced the South Side. He immediately, when he got here, he's like, I'm here. I'm about this, and I'm gonna, be the South Side. I'm gonna be the representative of the team. As I said before, he means more to the White Sox than he does anywhere else. And after this, other people might think differently, but I would be very crestfallen if Tim Anderson ever left the White Sox, kind of like I was crestfallen when Jose Abreu left, but I think to a greater degree because of the off-the-field stuff with Tim, with how he volunteers his time, and he represents something different for the African-American players, which are few and far between. And when you have a superstar like that, you want to cling on to him, especially when he's your superstar. And that's what Tim is showing that he is right now. So I would say that in my mind, as far as the whole package, yeah, Tim is probably more valuable than what Jose Abreu is to the team and the community. But Jose Abreu, I think, hurt me a little bit more because it's already happened. If Tim happens, man, especially if it goes to the Yankees, that would hurt my heart really badly because I know he's not of that. He's Chicago to the death.
Are we including Frank, Paul?
Well,
Burley?
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I kind of was, and I mean, listen, I think that everybody knows that baseball is a business that these guys go where they can, maximize their earnings, and that's their right, and that's fine. But we saw Frank Thomas play for another team. We saw Mark Burley play for another team. We saw Harold Baines play for another team. We saw Ozzie Guillen go down and play for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, didn't we? But I guess the point.
Did we?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
No, it's just we.
Oh yeah. You were too young to see
Chicago.
that.
Yeah, right.
You weren't old enough to see
Right.
that.
But I guess and now we see Jose Abreu going and playing in Houston. But when you talk about it from that business standpoint, it's not, will the White Sox give the contract that allows them to have Tim's production on the team, kind of yada yada. It's, can the White Sox afford to be without Tim Anderson? When we get to the end of when Tim hits free agency, can the White Sox afford to not have him on their team not just from a baseball standpoint, but from a PR standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, from a franchise standpoint? He seems to be the guy that they cannot let go.
Do you think will it be harder if they let him go, the response from the fans, than what Jose Abreu was? Because I think
It should
we
be.
were kind of used to it. We were like, okay, Jose's not going to come back. And when it happened, still it was like, fuck, I thought they were going to work out a way. And when Tim leaves, if he leaves, I think, like you, that, fans are going to be pissed. And because he's going to be in his prime, like just the end of his prime, I think 31, 32, but he's still got good baseball left in him. We saw what he did last night. Yeah, I think it's going to be hard for fans to swallow a Tim Anderson, even if Colson Montgomery is a champion. It's like you can have them both. You can have Colson at third or shortstop, wherever you need him to be, and Tim Manning shortstop until he can't do it anymore. And by that time, I'm sure he can do second base or DH, whatever.
And here's the thing too. Listen, I people care so much about what the budget is, what the free agent spending is. It is part of a plan. When you make a plan for multiple years, for years into the future, like the White Sox are doing, like teams across the league are doing, it is part of a plan to budget for years down the road. And I think right now, the people in the White Sox front office can look at the markets, can look at Tim Anderson and say, in 2 years, we're going to need to budget that amount of money. And I think they can plan for that now. And I'm not saying you're mortgaging I don't even know what that would mean, mortgaging the present to pay for the future. That doesn't really make any sense. But you're not sacrificing now to pay for later because TA is going to get a raise. I don't think that they're doing that. But I don't think that they are just sitting there waiting and being like, well, we'll see what happens when that year comes around. I think they got to know that they can budget for that now and that they can do their best to ensure that guy doesn't leave, because like I said, I don't know if they can afford from a team identity standpoint him going to play for another team.
I would thinking about Burley. I love Mark Burley. Mm-hmm. He's a left-hander, very unique player. Never gave off like he's the White Sox. Paul Konerko was cool, and I think that he was around for a long time, but like I don't know, like
he was on two teams before the White Sox.
Yes, and then Frank Thomas, like I don't know, Frank always felt like it was more about Frank and less about the team. And I don't know. That's a very warped view because I didn't see. I was very young when I saw Tim.
You are not wrong.
Frank.
That's the perception that was out there that Frank is about Frank, not necessarily the White Sox. Which, he was drafted to the team. He didn't choose the White Sox.
I think Tim and Jose probably are neck and neck, at least for who defined or kind of meant the most to the franchise, just with Jose's connection to Cuba and then how we saw just all of the international flair for this team over the past couple of years, and Yasmani Grandal coming over and being like, no, we need to win one for Jose. I thought that was really kind of a defining moment for him and his leadership. But I think Tim also, just by the way that he is, the swagger, the way that he kind of really brought back baseball, I think, in 2019. I don't think really people were paying attention to the White Sox in 2019, and then that bat flip happened, and then people started paying attention, and I feel like people knew who these White Sox were because Tim Anderson made them, put them on the map, really.
And that mindset or that idea can come back March 30th.
Oh, 100%,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they were the Tim Anderson White Sox in 2019, 2020, 2021, and then last year they just weren't anybody's White Sox because of how things went. But that they don't need to completely craft a new identity. They can go back and get that same one that Tim Anderson gave them in 2019. They just need the wins to go along with it.
Yeah, and he's still great. Like, that's the thing is, I know he's 29 right now, and there's still a little bit of concern at what he might be at 32. But even then, we saw Trey Turner get a huge contract for $300 million. A part of like his pluses is that his speed's really never dropped off. He's consistently stayed fast, and that's kind of the signs of, that's when you're going to start deteriorating. So giving a guy, $300 million who really hasn't deteriorated speed-wise, like, it's pretty good. It's a smart deal. Tim, his actual sprint speed percentiles have gone down. In 2019, 87 percentile. 2020, 92 percentile. Do you think he had a lot in the tank for that one?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was burning. But then in 2021, 74 percentile. In 2022, 76 percentile. However, we already showed the stats about a pre- and post-groin injury for 2022. He had a leg injury as well in 2021, right? Was it another groin injury? That Tampa?
When he did that throw, he got hurt.
Wasn't it more hip? I don't remember what it was exactly because Tony just kept calling it sore legs. So I don't remember what it was specifically. But
that's the lower half.
It was the lower body injury.
We can make it generic. But still.
Well, and remember the ankle roll at Fenway Park.
Yes.
Yeah.
Early in the season.
2019, right?
Was it?
Yeah, that was 2019.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
That's my bad on that. I thought it was
when it was
2021.
When they were playing in the middle of Boston Harbor out there in the rainy Fenway Park.
Yeah, I remember. I thought that was 2021 for some reason.
I don't know if they had StatCast on the thing, but whatever's was ailing him last year is gone.
Well,
he was absolutely flying.
So
like I've never seen him before.
But that's the thing. So even though he's 76 percentile and 74 percentile in 2022 and 2021, there's this thing called bolts on StatCast, and a bolt is any run above 30 feet per second, and that's like elite speed. If you're above 30 feet per second, you're the fastest of fast. You're 99th percentile. Since 2021, where he's had several leg injuries, he's 12th in MLB in bolts, 62. Up there with Jazz, a little bit above Andres Jimenez. A little bit above him is Tyler O'Neill and Julio Rodriguez. Obviously, Julio Rodriguez is very fast,
and young
because he just played one season and already has 75 bolts. But he's could be top 10-ish in speed. I don't really think it's declining, and if you're seeing how fast he is yesterday, I think it's showing that he's healthy, which is huge for the 2023 White Sox. And if he's healthy and he's ready to go, this team will win at least 81 games again because he is that straw that stirs the drink, and I don't think that's BS. I mean, they are good when he plays.
And I get it, Christian. Paul Konerko meant a lot to this organization, but the fact that he was not drafted by this organization, was traded for in the middle of, I think it was 1999, I believe it was, for Mike Cameron. Yes, he had a great White Sox career, and he ended with the White Sox. But I don't think of him as, man, we need Paul Konerko to be this, that, and the other. He meant a lot to the White Sox. Tim Anderson, if he leaves at 32 years old, will cause a ripple effect of this team, like of the fans. They'll be like, what the hell is going on? I don't want him to get to that point where he has 29 other teams bidding for his services. I want the White Sox to find a way. And I know Tim probably wants to get to that actual money, because you saw earlier in this offseason when the deals were getting signed, eye emojis. Oh, okay. Shortstop's getting paid. Cool. It's time for me to get paid. Time for me to get break off. You would see Tim with his vague tweets and stuff. I know what they mean. Tim wants to get paid.
One wasn't that vague. I think the reason why Henry said I was worried was because he tweeted at one point, New York state of mind.
He probably just went to New York.
Maybe. And as he said, don't read into his tweets. They're just for him. Mm-hmm. Damn. I want to ask you guys, or at least Herb, if you remember, like, what was it like for Paul Konerko? Because he was here until the end. But, like, I know with Mark Burley, there were so many times where he might not have been a White Sox. He continued his career in 2007, but there was worries that he might be dealt. Yeah. We obviously see Jose Abreu where if he doesn't have the qualifying offer in 2019, he might not be a White Sox for life. And Jerry Reinsdorf says White Sox for life, and that's not true.
Well, I mean, Herb, you know the answer to that question. I mean, and Rick brought it up a lot when we were the first time we were going through all of this with Jose going to free agency, and talking about signing guys to extensions in the middle of the year, all that kind of business. Paul Konerko went to free agency, and it took pretty long into the offseason, if memory serves, to re-up him. So there was a time where the face of the franchise went to free agency, tested those waters, and ended up coming back. I see that being far more likely in Tim Anderson's case than he signs a contract extension before he heads to free agency, unless they just decide to blow him away.
And that was like 05, 06, too. It was right in the height of Paul Konerko being a champion, where, is he coming back? Oh, no, we're going to lose Paulie Konerko? Uh-oh, troubles. If that would have been the equivalent, I think Paul might have been a little longer in tooth or just the same age as Tim at the time, but he was still hitting home runs at a prodigious clip. But at the end of his White Sox career, he had 2 horrendous years at the end of his career. It was obvious that he never took steroids. He was aging gracefully. He was aging like a real Major League Baseball player is supposed to do. They had his final game.
He aged like Crash Davis.
Yeah, like we thought, this is his last game. And then he came back for the next year, and he was not that great. It was pretty much like a curtain call for Paul Konerko at the end of his career. But, he aged like he's supposed to. I think, the fact that he came back was great. Mark Burley, I think that was a choice between him and John Danks, and the White Sox chose the younger John Danks, mistakenly, instead of Mark Burley. I think deals were similar. It was like a 4-year $50 million for Danks and a 4-year $56 million for Mark Burley.
Yeah.
Just so he could have the same, the jersey number.
Yeah, exactly.
This is from Wikipedia, so I don't know how accurate it is or who wrote it, but following the 2005 World Series, Konerko signed a 5-year, $60 million deal with the White Sox, November 30th, 2005. Too late into
2005 was different. The baseball calendar worked a little different than it does now,
and also scary too. Yeah, you didn't want other teams bidding on. I've heard Boston was there.
Yeah, after reportedly turning down lucrative offers from Los Angeles Angels and Baltimore.
Oh, Baltimore.
I don't know
okay.
if Boston was in there too.
Yeah, it was scary that he was not going to be there, but they pony up, and I think part of it he got re-signed because he gave the ball to Jerry Reinsdorf. That's part of the thing. Like Jerry Reinsdorf with loyalty, the fact that he presented the game-winning ball to Jerry Reinsdorf probably went into it, and the number was right too. Paul wasn't asking him to break the bank, which he could have. He was a big-time player at that time, and it would have been hurt for the White Sox to lose him, even though they traded to get Jim Thome the next year or that same offseason.
Yeah. Did we learn anything from Jose, though? Is that kind of the same thing that they try to, hey, go see what you can get, and then they got outbid? And do you really want that to happen with Tim Anderson? Tim Anderson's out in the free agent market, and, the Yankees do offer him $50 more million than you wanted to sign.
I mean, Jose Abreu was a free agent for what, like a week the last time. Yeah.
Well, my point. You're talking about
he turned down the qualifying offer, and he was actually a free agent for very small amount of time. But then technically he could have fielded other offers if he wanted to hear what they were going to be. But I think what happened with Jose shows you that the White Sox will. Again, Rick Hahn has said this whole time, to the start of this rebuilding process, that they keep everything on the table, that they keep all options on the table. And as surprising as it was to her, both you and myself, one of those options that they kept on the table was letting Jose Abreu go to another team. And that's the way it played out. And I think that they look at all options, that they look at all angles, and certainly there's business, monetary element that comes into this. They needed to try to afford what they wanted to do this offseason. They went and gave out the biggest free agent contract in team history to Andrew Benintendi. They chose to allocate their resources there rather than with Jose Abreu. So it seems to me that like Jose Abreu going to Houston shows you that no matter how much you're valued by this organization, I don't think that outcome should show you that they were like mad at him or didn't like him anymore or anything like that. It just goes to show you that it doesn't mean that you're going to be in that same jersey forever. Now, I think there's a difference with Tim Anderson. I think there's a difference in the fact that everything Jose Abreu said to the media was through a translator, and that's no fault of his. I don't blame him for doing that, but people ingest that in a different way than they do somebody speaking in the language that they speak. Tim Anderson spoke in English, and his words got turned into the slogan for the entire team. It got turned into the marketing slogan for the entire organization, right? So I think that TA is just more. He's just more from a PR standpoint, from an unquantifiable baseball standpoint, right? There's no stat for marketability. Seriously, there's no stat for that, and I think there's no stat for everything that Abreu did in that clubhouse to the guys that he brought up through this game. There's no stat for how much TA means to the organization in terms of what they stand for, right? And again, Abreu's not playing for this team anymore. I think it's surprising, and I think that you could say a lot of the same things that I'm saying now about TA about Jose Abreu. But I think they got to really, really make sure that they try to keep Tim Anderson on the south side.
And the difference between the two players and the positions they play, first base, it's very important, but you can have another first baseman, as they did with Andrew Vaughn and Gavin Sheets available to play first base. And so letting Jose Abreu go calculated hurts everybody, but it's not going to hurt. Tim plays a much more valuable spot in both leading off and shortstop. And I think when he does leave, or if he does leave, like, there will be a lot of teams available to go and get him. And so I don't think the White Sox will be like, oh, man, can we afford to lose him? Like somebody says, 2 or 3 Benintendis, the contract will be. I don't know if it'll be that much because I don't know if Tim will be going against the competition that was this offseason where the numbers drove each other up with the...
Contract values don't go down, though, Herb.
They don't, but with the Bogarts and the Trey Turner and the Correa and those Dansby Swanson, I think they were all competing against each other. One was signing and the other one's. I don't know who's going to be leaving the same year Tim's leaving. So I think the value of Tim's actual position and his leadership and what he means to the city is a little bit different than Jose Abreu. And so I think that's what's going to cause the White Sox a little pause where, like, are we really guaranteed to give Colston Montgomery this job? A person that might not have played in the major leagues before that at a premium position like shortstop. So I hope that goes into the calculus for the White Sox, not knowing who's going to be behind Tim Anderson, not just the player, but replacing him. I think you've made a great point that Jose Abreu, while great, maybe can be made up in the aggregate. It's going to be tough to be made up in the aggregate with Tim Anderson for all the stuff that he does.
There's not a lot of athletes like Tim Anderson. That's 100% true. I hope Tim Anderson is different. I don't think this organization will be different. I think it will still be the same owner. I still think it will be the same duo of power in Kenny and Rick. And we see how that duo has operated with faces of the franchise. Unless it is a good deal for them, it doesn't seem like it is necessary for them to go set the market on any player. Mm-hmm. I hope Tim Anderson is different because of all the things that you said, all that he is on the field, off the field. I think that he is completely different. But I'm not going to get my hopes up just because I'm not controlling that checkbook. I'm not controlling those purse strings. And at the end of the day, it is business. And I know that they're going to do what's best for business for them. And typically that doesn't mean $200 million.
But you got to think about this too.
$175 million.
We're talking about the World Baseball Classic. Unfortunately for Jose Abreu, never participated in it. Didn't get his global brand out there.
Didn't he?
Does he come back out there? I mean, not as a Major League Baseball player. He might have did it before he fled Cuba. But he performed in the Corn Game. He performed in both playoff series he's been in. He performed in the World Baseball Classic. When the lights shine the brightest, when he was getting called Jackie, he performed in the Boogie Down Bronx. People see that. pressure doesn't get to the cat. It doesn't get to him. And so they're like, you know what? He's a different guy. He's not just the numbers that he accumulates, but when it's time to come up for his team, he does.
Well, you talk about business. TA's the guy you put on the billboard. Mm-hmm. TA's the guy getting people to buy tickets. I mean,
I think he had the most sold Team USA jersey. I could be wrong on that.
Everything we've heard about Andrew Benintendi is he's a great guy in the clubhouse and been a very nice guy and a very good baseball player. We know that. Andrew Benintendi's not going to be in the commercial. Andrew Benintendi's not going on the billboard, and he's the highest paid free agent in franchise history.
Does that matter, though? I mean,
it's an entertainment business.
But it is an entertainment business.
You don't think
100%? But
you don't think people are buying a ticket to go see if Tim Anderson can flip his bat?
I think that if it's between Tim Anderson and a 78-win team and a 98-win team with nobodies, I think they're going to see the 90-win team. So I just don't know what it depends. It depends on Tim Anderson and what they think.
Maybe I think you take your kids to see the show.
Yeah. Me too.
You're not wrong. I like Tim Anderson. I'm not trying to say anything bad about Tim Anderson. I'm just saying I don't think that's how 35th and Shields operates.
I hope
it is. I hope I'm wrong too. Like I said, I hope Tim Anderson is different. He deserves to be different because he is entertaining like that.
Well, and if I think too, this conversation would be a lot different if Jose Abreu was still on this team. Yep. Because then you could really play up that whole loyalty, that angle, that whole he'll never wear another uniform angle kind of thing.
They're only loyal if it's good for the purse.
I don't think that idea has been shattered because Jose Abreu is on another team, but it speaks a lot. It was a loud comment.
I don't know. Like Leury Garcia signed for $15 million, and he is not even an average utility player, and yet they are going out and matching whatever the Pirates were because I just think it was under $20 million, and of course they're not going to get beaten by $1 million or $2 million by the Pirates. But when you're just getting outspent by the Houston Astros, who I think wanted to spend $40 million more than you on Jose Abreu, I don't think they wanted to give him 2 years. Like, I get why the deal was made, but like you just went from a great first baseman to right now an average first baseman. We hope Andrew Vaughn can be great. There's a lot of signs that he could be great, but I mean, even to keep your team just as good as it was, you couldn't spend that extra money to make sure that Jose Abreu was there, your best player from last year. I mean, that's the point that I've been hearing from you guys is that he's their best player, and they let him walk, and this is their window. So it's an odd choice.
As with the Mike Clevenger move, it was a calculated risk that they're willing to take to see what Andrew Vaughn can do in his greatest, putting no more excuses on Andrew Vaughn. First base, you're here. Let's see you be Andrew Vaughn, the third pick in the draft that year. Let's see if Sean's right with his great illustrations. I do like your illustrations on Twitter about Andrew Vaughn.
I thought for a second you had started drawing.
No.
Oh, you don't want to see me drawing.
This man is just out here. He's an Andrew Vaughn truther.
Well, I don't need a Borvini with these stats. Well, let me just bring this one up though. This is from Baseball Prospectus, and it's range defense added. So it's just basically talking about how much range a player has, and this is very important for shortstops. Attempted range is a counting stat addressing the fact that unlike outfielders who will always field the ball one way or another, infielders can control their own denominator by the extent to which they're able to reach balls on the edge of their position's typical range. Tim Anderson is one of the worst shortstops by range defense added. Range outs made, -4.2. Range outscore, -1.7. However, in the attempt range where how far he can cover, how much ground he could cover.
The balls he's getting to.
Yeah. Out of all of the worst shortstops by RDA, Tim Anderson is the only one with a positive attempt range. The next best is Bo Bichette at -1. Tim Anderson's at a 7.
Wow. So
he has massive range. And when you're looking at the top best shortstops, like Dansby Swanson, who just got paid, he has a 0 attempt range. It puts him in the likes of Nick Allen and Geraldo Perdomo when it comes to range, those legends of
the elites.
The elites. But even like Willie Adames has a 16 attempt range. Haesung Kim has a 12. As IKF in New York has a 15. Andrew Velasquez has a 10. But those guys don't hit as well as Tim Anderson. So Tim Anderson has this great range, and maybe he's not as efficient as he can be, but he always seems to be a work in progress. Like, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be getting that much worse at defense, and he's still as athletic as hell. So as long as he keeps hitting, I think he's going to get paid handsomely.
And being around some of the best players in the United States won't hurt him. Being around Trey
Right.
Turner and all the players that are up there, Mike Trout, all the players, greatness begets greatness. Steel sharpens steel, iron sharpens iron. And I think Tim will come out of this World Baseball Classic that much better.
We will see, hopefully. We got a little bit more World Baseball Classic to talk about with Lance Lynn coming up. I do have the chain of teammates as well. From Tim Anderson to Mark DeRosa, they share one teammate in common. I will hit the ad break, and then you guys can think, all right?
I got to guess this.
Think of the 2016 White Sox.
Jesus. Ugh, I don't want to.
CHGO is supported by Goose Island Beer Company. They've been Chicago's beer since 1988. They have a vast beer roster. The Bulls City 312. They have the fantastic Bulls City Can Edition, so it matches the City Edition Bulls uniform. They have the Blackhawks Pale Ale, which is a limited release. They have the Bourbon County Stouts, which has 4 flavors that you can try. The Beer Hug IPA series, which also has 4 flavors you could try. The Green Line, the Matilda, and the Sophie, and obviously the wonderful 312 that comes in the green can. And
Delicious.
the Tasty Time Pale Ale as well that's on that table.
Got a lot at home.
We have a lot at home. They're $11.99, I think, over at Jewel. 15 packs of Goose. And Goose Island's 2 locations are open and ready to welcome you. Grab a beer right from their innovative tanks at Goose Island's tap room at 1800 West Fulton, or get a smash burger and a fresh beer of the week at the original Clybourne Brewhouse at 1800 North Clybourne. For reservations and pickup, go to gooseisland.com/locations. Goose Island Beer Company. Also got to let you know about FOCO. Chicago, you've already got the best coverage for your favorite team, so get fitted in the best sports gear around. FOCO has you covered from Soldier Field to the front room, north or south side, with hoodies, slippers, signs, bobbleheads, and everything in between. Get decked out like tomorrow with apparel from the leaders in sports merch and collectibles. FOCO, if you're looking for the perfect gift for the football fan in your life, FOCO's got you hoodies. FOCO's got you covered with hoodies to fight that Lake Michigan breeze. So check out FOCO.com. That's FOCO.com, or click the link in the description below. For all non-presale items, use the promo code CHGO for 10% off. That's FOCO. FOCO.com. And again, under 30 degrees today. So I can still read the hoodie line and the Lake Michigan breeze because it was cold.
It's so
today.
cold.
I hate it. Makes me miserable.
Lousy smarch weather.
Smarch. All right, let's jump into some Lance Lynn talk. What was it?
It's a quality Simpsons reference.
Who's the guy?
Who's the guy?
Oh, duh.
Who's the guy?
Yeah, guys,
Oh.
I also, like MLB Network, have the memory of a goldfish. From the 2016 White Sox, you got any guesses?
I have 2 people I know was on 2016 White Sox. I'm going to guess J-Roll, Jimmy Rollins, my hero.
No.
Ooh,
It's a good
that's
guess.
a good one.
I like Jimmy
That's
Rollins.
a very good guess.
DeRosa was never a Philly.
Never a fighting Phil. Oof. Did he play with him in Cleveland?
No.
Okay.
He played with Mark DeRosa in his most famous city, Toronto.
Toronto. Blue Jay. Goodness gracious. So it's definitely not Adam LaRoche.
No, it's not Adam LaRoche.
He could have called him in. Well, he's trying to stop sex crimes.
What?
He could have.
Could have.
You never heard that story?
No, I didn't.
Oh, that's the.
It's juicy. You should
You research that. Yeah.
Probably. That seems dark. Well, we got a couple. I'll just throw out a couple. A lot from the 2013 Blue Jays. The one that I was thinking of was Brett Lowry. Edwin Encarnacion also comes up. Melky Cabrera comes up. Some from the 2012 Nationals: Ross Detweiler, Zach Duke, Gio Gonzalez, Ryan Goings, Hector Sanchez. So, I mean, he could have made a call to Tyler Clippard and ask him how TA is.
Tyler Clippard,
You know?
yeah.
Clippy.
What a jerk Mark DeRosa is.
Mark from Microsoft Word.
Oh, he could have called Jason Marquis, who could have called Ryan Lemaire, who could have called Tim Anderson.
It's like, yeah, he's a great teammate. Thanks for calling me. Bye.
Anyways, let's get into Tim Anderson or Lance Lynn. I did say Lance Lynn was going to pitch 5 innings yesterday.
Oh my God.
Barely.
He pitched 5 innings.
Just barely.
65 pitches against Canada last night. 6 strikeouts as well. Lance was dominant. Not surprising, though, because you said he was in season shape already.
I mean, we were talking about him being the best pitcher on this team, right? Being the best starting pitcher on this team. We were talking about him being, really, really good at baseball. What a surprise that he goes out and, shuts down the Canadians. I would have loved to see what Lance Lynn would have done had he gone past 60, had he hit that 65 pitch mark,
tweet.
and Mark DeRosa had to come out there and take him off the mound. Yeah, that seems like something Lance Lynn would have been cool with. Woo, boy.
There's an asterisk in the rule book. It says 65 pitch count unless you cannot physically remove the pitcher from the mound.
Right.
Yeah, Miles Michaelis comes out, the ball. He's like, get your ass back there.
Lance Lynn's fighting Andy Pettit on the mound.
Yeah, he vintage Lance Lynn, dominating, filling up the zone with strikes. He knew that he had to fill up the zone with strikes because of that pitch limit. He wanted to get the 5 innings because he knew the Americans needed it after the game versus the Mexican team where they used a lot of pitchers, and he gave the team a much-needed 5 innings of quality baseball, so they only had to pitch Miles Michaelis after that so they get this day off, and then they can go full bore again versus Colombia if need be. So he knew the excitement, and he stepped up to it immediately. I'm still baffled why they pitched Nick Martinez versus the Mexican team instead of Lance Lynn, because Lance Lynn's a much better pitcher than Nick Martinez, and Nick Martinez is more of a reliever than a starter, but whatever.
And Canada is much worse than Mexico at baseball?
Yeah, I mean, you would put your better player versus the better team in Mexico. I mean, but, I'm not the manager. Mark DeRosa's missing a couple steps out here. He's like, I'm just out here filling out lineup cards. I'm not even going to be worrying about the actual good pitchers out there. But
we're going to score 15 runs. It doesn't matter.
But Lance was vintage, throwing his 4 fastballs for strikes. I think he buckled one guy on a curveball, so that was good to see. The man is looking much better than he looked like at the beginning of last year, as we saw that was just not Lance Lynn. Now with the freshness of spring training, he still, doesn't look like he lost weight or anything like that. He's still Lance Lynn. The body's still the same, so he's not in the best shape of his life, but his pitches are working. And those are Major League Baseball players over there. Frederick Freeman's over there. Mm-hmm. He still can do stuff. He can still crush, and he was not doing a damn thing versus Lance Lynn. Only 1 home run, solo shot.
Well, and
that came after a 9-run first inning.
Yeah. So he had to sit down for like 30 minutes, which I was worried about, like if he was coming back up from such a long rest.
Yeah, no, I mean, the White Sox, especially, the pitching wasn't the problem last year. It's the hitting. The hitting needs to show up, and if they show up, Lance Lynn giving up a solo shot won't even matter.
Lance Lynn looked like it was June.
No, seriously.
Night. He looked really good. He looked
yelling, too.
Yep.
Oh, my God. That one video I of just, like, I forget who. Yeah, just screaming.
Yeah.
You couldn't hear that if it was a game in Taiwan or Japan, but no, in the middle of Chase Field with all those fanatic baseball fans, it's dead silent, and all you could hear is Lance Lynn screaming on the mound.
I thought they sounded all right yesterday. Maybe it was maybe Fox turned the mics up. Who knows? But I thought the crowd sounded pretty good. It was almost 30,000 people, wasn't it?
Just in that one video, though, it was just so silent, and all you hear in the massive stadium is Lance Lynn's echoing woo.
The spin and swear. After the strikeout, the spin and swear. That's what I call it. That's what he does every strikeout. Basically.
I was disappointed. I didn't see a ton of patriotic crotch grabbing. I wish there was a little bit more of that, but that's just me. But midseason form, absolutely. You look at his year average velocity, 93 typically on his four-seam fastball. He was at 92.8 on average last night. 89 was his year average for his cutter. He was at 89.5 on an average. 82 for his curveball, usually sits at 80, or he was sitting at 81.6. Basically, he looked like Lance Lynn, which is fantastic to see.
I told you guys throughout spring training, he looked like he was absolutely ready for opening day from the day he got there. And I'm sure it is in part because of the World Baseball Classic, knowing that he wanted to be, as much of a horse as they would let him, as the rules would allow him to be in this tournament. But also you got to think that, he's the guy who said, hey, if you needed a chip on your shoulder last year, you got one. Maybe there's a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, not necessarily, for any losing reason or anything like that, though I'm sure he did not like it. But just on a personal level, showing what he can do. These guys do not like being injured. It makes them very, very mad when they cannot post. And he missed two months of the season. He missed a third of the season, and he spent another month or almost 2 getting right. So for him to come out and have a full healthy season where he is Lance Lynn from 1 through 162, I'm sure is extraordinarily important to him. And so, yeah, it's looked for a while now like he's ready for the season to start. Boy, did it look last night like he's ready for the season to start.
I mean, seriously. Last 14 games, I always go to the one specific stretch, I think from the 23rd to the 10th or so. But
23rd of what?
July.
Okay.
The last 14 games of his season, though, 2.52 ERA.
He was amazing.
85 innings pitched, 89 strikeouts to 10 walks. I mean, basically a 9-to-1 K to walk ratio. I mean, he was fantastic.
That plays.
Opponent OPS of 640. Yeah, I think the White Sox will be fine. Dylan Cease, I know, is looking a little rocky in spring training. But we'll see.
Give up all the home runs. Give up all the runs in spring training.
No home runs today.
Who cares? Enjoy yourself.
No, but seriously, who cares? It's
we
great
talk
to
about
see
practice.
Lance in more serious practice, doing well. Anyways, it's going to wrap it up for the CHGO White Sox podcast. That is Vinnie Duber. You can follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Duber. He's our CHGO White Sox beat writer. That's Herb Lawrence. You can follow him on Twitter at Ecknerwall23. He's our CHGO White Sox community leader. And I'm Sean Anderson. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean_W_Anderson. Thank you very much to everybody hanging out with us in the chat. And thank you to Sarah for producing the show today. We'll be back with you tomorrow at 4 p.m. here on the CHGO Sports YouTube channel.